The rail line between Los Angeles and San Diego is absolutely iconic. With trains running along the Pacific Coast, the Surf Line, as it's called, may just be the most scenic stretch of track in the United States. While people pay hundreds of dollars to see landscapes like these on tourist railroads, San Diego's Coaster Commuter Rail offers these breathtaking views for just a few dollars, all while operating trains every hour. Today on Railroad Review, we'll be discussing the most scenic commuter rail in the country, Coaster. Chapter 1. The Past. Coaster operates on the southern end of the Surf Line, otherwise known as the rail line between Los Angeles and San Diego. While at first, judging by the modern rail equipment and relatively high speeds,
it may seem that this extremely busy rail corridor was built rather recently.
Surprisingly, it actually has quite the history beginning well over a century ago. The first trains ran all the way back in 1880 when the California Southern Railroad opened its new line between National City, a station just south of San Diego, and Fallbrook Junction, a station just north of Oceanside. This line soon became part of the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe in 1885, which was quickly building a rail empire in the American Southwest. Using this line just a little bit, the Santa Fe operated freight trains to San Diego, which at the time was just a small village, but by the late 30s, the ATSF was ready to introduce passenger service on the line. On March 27, 1939, the Santa Fe introduced the San Diegan, a passenger service between Los Angeles and San Diego, which soon became the railroad's busiest passenger route, comparable to the PRR's electrified lines in the Northeast. The San Diegan was a California icon, and over the years, the economic stimulus it provided transformed San Diego from a small fishing outpost to a considerable city by the 1960s. Of course, if you know anything about the history of American passenger rail though, this is where things begin to go downhill. After World War II, cars became the preferred mode of transportation in America, sending passenger trains into a state of economic malaise. As was the case with any railroad in the United States at the time, the Santa Fe quickly began to decrease passenger service to the point of nearly canning it altogether. With this problem worsening by the day, in 1971, the federal government stepped in, creating Amtrak, a nationalized inner-city and long-distance rail provider, which would take over unprofitable passenger train services in exchange for hand-me-down equipment and trackage rights from the host railroads. Like many railroads around the country, the Santa Fe instantly pawned off many of its routes to Amtrak, including the San Diegan, which once again continued to operate, this time under the Amtrak brand. While the Surf Line has pretty much always used the same route since its beginning, the trains were constantly evolving, but not fast enough, as around the same time that Amtrak took over passenger operations for the Santa Fe, San Diego had grown into a city large enough to warrant its own local commuter rail. In 1982, a new line known as Coast Express Rail was proposed, with trains operating between San Diego and Oceanside. With research and planning continuing throughout the 80s, the North San Diego County Transit Development Board approved Transnet, a half-cent sales tax that would fund this project along with other transit infrastructure across the county. As soon as funding was secured, the board established the San Diego Northern Railway, which would act as the operating subsidiary for the service. Finally, in 1995, the San Diego Northern received its first equipment with a fleet of EMD F40 PHM-2C locomotives and second-gen Bombardier bi-level coaches and cab cars. Later in the year, on February 27, 1995, Coast Express Rail, shortened to Coaster, ran its inaugural service between San Diego's Santa Fe Depot and Oceanside. Starting off with 4 daily round trips, these colorful blue, white, and teal trains would provide San Diego County with much-needed public transit. After a considerable period of consistent ridership though, service would be expanded even further, with Coaster receiving 12 more cars and cab cars and 2 EMD F59 PHI locomotives between 1997 and 2003. Eventually, Coaster would amass a total fleet of 7 locomotives, 18 coaches, and 10 cab cars, allowing it to grow to 15 weekday round trips and 10 weekend round trips. Chapter 2. Present. As I said earlier, Coaster's route hasn't changed at all since the 90s. Beginning at Santa Fe Depot in San Diego, trains run north to San Diego's Old Town district before meandering into Sereno Valley. North of the valley, trains pick up more speed, stopping at Solana Beach, Encinitas, Carlsbad Poinsettia, Carlsbad Village, and finally terminating at Oceanside. Making all these stops, trains can travel the 41 miles between the two terminals in just over an hour, reaching a top speed of 90 miles per hour north of Solana Beach. While in most countries 90 miles per hour is considered an average or even low speed for passenger trains, in America any speed over 80 miles per hour is considered higher speed rail, which technically means Coaster is a higher speed rail service for select parts of its journey. Trains are managed by the North County Transit District, or NCTD, and they're serviced at Stewart Mesa Yard, which is just north of Oceanside. Aside from some minor changes in management over the years, the commuter rail has stayed pretty much the same in terms of operations, although in 2018, NCTD ordered 5 Siemens Charger locomotives that would replace the aging F40 engines. In late 2020, the first Chargers arrived on property, and on February 8, 2021, the F40s ran for the last time, being fully replaced by the newer, less polluting SC44 Chargers. Around this same time, the NCTD began to rebuild their aging second-gen Bombardier bi-level coaches and cab cars, refreshing their interiors, upgrading their suspension, and of course giving them a fresh coat of paint to match the new locomotives. Other than this recent improvement in equipment, Coaster has stayed pretty consistent, although it seems to have a pretty bright future ahead. Before we get into that though, let's get trackside and see Coaster's current operations. Chapter 3, Trackside. Let's start in Encinitas, a charming beach town located about 30 miles north of San Diego's Santa Fe Depot. Here we see a southbound train coasting into the station with a mix of recently rebuilt bi-level cars and non-rebuilt bi-level cars. On a quiet Saturday like this one, not many people are taking the train, but downtown Encinitas is alive with coffee shops and a farmer's market. Next up, another Coaster train at Encinitas, but this time a northbound. After boarding only a few passengers, the new Charger locomotive notches up and swiftly accelerates out of town. Notice how much quieter this locomotive is than the F40s which preceded it. After tooling around in Encinitas for a while, I headed a few miles south to Del Mar, which is home to the famous Del Mar Cliffs, where the surf line runs just feet from the Pacific Ocean. Here's one last look at Coaster with a northbound train cruising up the shore. Sometimes it's hard to believe that this is just a regular commuter train and the riders of Coaster get to experience views like this every day. Chapter 4, The Future. While Coaster just recently received new low-emissions locomotives in 2020 and installed positive train control safety systems in 2018, there's a lot more modernization coming in the near future, but first off, the past. Following their retirement in 2021, all 5 F40s were made inoperable and then subsequently donated to the Pacific Southwest Railway Museum. For over a year, all 5 locomotives remained stored on NCTD property, with the museum struggling to find the funding to transport them to their museum in Campo, California. Luckily though, in 2022, railfan YouTuber CoasterFan2105 worked with the Pacific Southwest to fund the transport of one F40 to their museum, in addition to the donation of his namesake locomotive 2105 to the Southern California Railway Museum. As of right now, locomotive number 2103 will go to Pacific Southwest Railway Museum, 2105 will go to the Southern California Railway Museum, and the other 3 will likely be sold to other museums or used for spare parts. While this has little to do with the future of Coaster, I think it's really awesome to see how the iconic Coaster F40 number 2105 will be saved by a content creator who introduced a whole generation of railfans to Coaster. Anyways, back to modernization. While the F40s have been replaced by the new Siemens Charger engines, Coaster's 2 F59 PHI locomotives continue to impair Coaster's system-wide Tier 4 diesel emissions, although this too is set to change very soon. In late 2022, Coaster will receive 2 more SC44 Chargers, allowing for the replacement of both F59s by early 2023. At this point, Coaster will be one of the few railroads in North America to operate an all Tier 4 emissions diesel fleet. As for the F-59s, they may be donated to a museum or scrapped, but only time will tell. In addition to replacing the old locomotives with new ones, even more equipment will be delivered throughout 2023, consisting of 2 more chargers and new cars. This equipment will allow Coaster to begin to expand service even more, adding additional weekday round trips to the schedule. Anyways, the new chargers will most likely be completely identical to the existing ones, but these new cars certainly won't be. Arriving in late 2022, just a little bit before the additional 2 charger locomotives, Coaster will be receiving 8 coaches and 3 cab cars from Bombardier, and while the coaches will most likely be identical to the rebuilt second-gen cars, the cab cars will feature Bombardier's new crash energy management design, meaning that they'll be streamlined instead of featuring flat noses. This will mean that cab cars will perform better in the event of a crash, in addition to looking much better in my opinion. These new 9th-gen bi-level cars will be compatible with the existing 2nd-gen bi-levels, which will slowly be rebuilt one by one through 2026. Other than that, Coaster has no other equipment on order, but Coaster's modernization efforts go far beyond just equipment. In February of 2022, the San Diego Association of Governments approved a 30-year, $160 billion regional transportation plan with the following things planned to be done by 2050. To begin, the whole line between San Diego and Oceanside will be fully double-tracked, a new central mobility hub will be built in San Diego, some sort of rail connection will be built at the airport, Coaster trains will run every 5 to 10 minutes all day, and a tunnel will be built bypassing the Del Mar cliffs, which are slowly eroding. Additionally, this plan calls for all transit in the region to be made free by 2030. Of course, as of right now, it's unclear where all this money will come from, but since it's already been approved, chances are it'll be sorted out soon. Onwards from 2050, no plans have been set in stone, although my guess is that Coaster will order even more equipment, especially if they end up running trains every 5 to 10 minutes all day, and more importantly, Coaster may look into electrification. Anyways, that's almost 30 years into the future, and surely between now and then, a lot will change for Coaster. But for now, it's clear that Coaster is only just beginning to transform into a modern commuter rail. Chapter 5, Conclusion. Overall, it's pretty obvious that I like Coaster a lot, but what makes it unique? Well, surprisingly, on paper, Coaster seems pretty basic. It uses run-of-the-mill Bombardier bi-level cars and Siemens chargers. They operate just one line, and that line starts in the big city and ends in the suburbs, and it's a diesel-based commuter rail which uses push-pull equipment. Nothing too special. Coaster is one of those railroads that seems basic until you experience it for yourself, and I must say, after spending an afternoon in Del Mar, you can really learn to appreciate Coaster for what it is, the most scenic commuter rail in North America, and one that's looking far into the future with plans to build a commuter rail network comparable to those of Europe and Asia.